Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Oh, yes. Your perfect companion for a nice cold January afternoon. Happy to be with you. Thank you for joining us for show number 565. Ron Finn here, along with the unrepeatable Shayne Stanfield. Shayne, how are you?
Unrepeatable.
You are unrepeatable.
I could go for that.
Yeah.
That's I could almost like wear a ribbon or something. Unrepeatable.
Yeah, you should.
It's just me.
Here he comes again, Mr. Unrepeatable. I thought I saw you for the last time.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How about you? How's
Good.
everything at the parish?
Real good, real good. You staying warm?
For the most part.
Yeah. Good. That's tough to do on days.
It is tough to do, and it seems like we're just in this grip of this Arctic cold, and we still got several days to go. And I don't know. It's only, January. So what's going to happen in February?
Just when you
March?
thought you were done with it, it just comes back around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they're already talking about closing things on Friday because of wind chills. So we'll see.
Yeah, I tell you, I wish I was in school.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gaming time going on.
I wouldn't go back, though. No,
I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, we have a great show for you today. We really do. One of our favorite guests of all time, Matt Archbold, is with us. And, of course, you may know his story. He's the father of five, an author, a speaker, and a columnist for several prominent Catholic publications. You might recall when he wrote for the Catholic Digest, he was writing about raising five children, and it really was, they were very funny articles and very telling. And then, of course, he also always has a great take, a thoughtful take on current events, pro-life and religious liberty issues. You can read him just as much everywhere. He's at the National Catholic Register and other places, and he's got a pretty large and faithful readership. His own website, creativeminorityreport.com, one of the most popular Catholic blogs, and, of course, his books. Matt's books, Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage. That's received wide acclaim for his portrayals of Christians facing intolerance, oppression, even violence with expressions of love and faith. A very inspiring book. And his pro-life, American Antigone, depicts a fictional but authentic account of the violent opposition brought to bear on those who stand for life in a culture of death. Of course, Matt is a regular guest on Annunciation Radio's morning offering program as a result of a losing hand at poker. He provides his unique insights every Thursday morning right here on Annunciation Radio. Matthew Archbold, welcome back to Faith with Reasons. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It actually was not a losing hand of poker. It was a rabid game of Go Fish.
Oh, I remember that, yes.
Go Fish.
Yes. Now, it says here, Matt, that you're a blogger, and I've just wondered, do you do this professionally? Do you do it with your family? Do you go to, county fairs, and do you have to wear those wooden shoes to do that on the stages, or how does that work?
Well, it is funny. My brother is my IT guy, and he's not a very good one, okay? He's very, very intelligent, but he's just not very inspired. When your brother calls to ask for help, that call sometimes gets pushed aside for other reasons. So it's funny. In the times that the blog is down, I do end up, chasing after people to yell at them my opinion on daily events, and anyone who will listen to me. So it's best if I corral it onto the blog. That way I don't bother my neighbors or passing by people.
So right there in the aisles of Kroger. So it's blog. Okay, I had it confused.
Clog?
Yeah, instead of clogging, it's blogging. I always have trouble with consonants for some reason. It's really strange. I'll tell you what, there's always something cooking there at creativeminorityreport.com. And I noticed, too, that your article about the Lions Come, still up there at nationalcatholicregister.com. That's a great read as well. And there's so much happening at all times in the news, and I don't know how you zero in on certain things, but you certainly have a very dependable radar.
Well, it really is just what happened. So yesterday, I'm going about my business, and so my daughter is at college, okay, and she is involved with the pro-life group there, and she's walking around with the girl who's the president of the pro-life group, and they're on campus, and they run into this group, which is not sanctioned to be there. It's they were pro-choice students handing out these cards, and this card said St. Bridget of Kildare of Ireland. As one of her miracles, she essentially performed an abortion. So all Catholics should be pro-abortion. So my daughter, so this girl who's the head of the pro-life group, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe they're handing this out. I don't know enough to combat this, though. I have to do research." So my daughter goes, "Well, this is kind of a once-in-a-million thing. You get your daughter to tell someone, no, don't worry about it. I'll just call my dad. He knows everything about this stuff.
Bet she was
he'll
right.
have the answer right away." And she calls and she explains it to me, and they're both on speaker, and I have to say, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Wow.
So I had my big moment. It was right there to impress my daughter, and I came up way short. After all these years, you would think I would have come across this, but no, this was totally new by Catholics for Choice. Is literally putting out a card saying St. Bridget of Kildare, in one of her, miracles, performed an abortion. So I look into it. And of course, there's no truth to this whatsoever. So essentially what they're basing it on is somebody wrote a book about St. Bridget of Kildare hundreds of years after she had lived, right? Mm-hmm. And he tells this speech in her cloister that obviously this person was trying to hype up virtue, and I see what they were doing, but they didn't think it through, and they said that a nun ended up getting pregnant, and St. Bridget made the pregnancy go away and restored her virginity, and wasn't that amazing? Okay, fine. So the one thing you get is you look at this guy who wrote this book on her, and this guy was not the greatest researcher of all. He missed a couple of little things like St. Bridget's birthday, her death day, where she was born, and the name of any of her contemporaries.
Oh,
right.
Just to name a few.
Oh my.
Right. And also, he also forgot that. Okay, St. Bridget was cloistered, right? How did he find out about this?
Yeah.
Does he not understand what the walls of a cloister are? How did he even find out about this? Were they yelling about this? It's just so ridiculous that this is being pushed by Catholics for Choice. But so you asked me where I get ideas from. It's stupid things like this that I have to respond to, and it's just shocking to me that Catholics for Choice is actually putting this out there. And my daughter did write to me after. She loved the article, and she said, how sad is it that we have that there's an organization out there called Catholics for Choice? Mm-hmm. And I just said, you want to hear something even sadder? And she said, what? I said that we actually need an organization called Priests for Life, as if that isn't all of them. That there is a certain section. So there's a lot going on here, and the church has always stood for life, and there's no doubt about that. And so I just thought putting this out there. I mean, how many times have young people been on college campuses and been handed this? And that's the kind of way they crack it. It's just a little crack in it, a little chink in the armor, as they say, and all of a sudden you start doubting it. Like maybe the church isn't right on this. Maybe this is all being made up as it goes along, and that's why it is so important to fight and to teach and to educate that the church has always been so clear on that issue.
Well, and it's just amazing and insidious that hey, if we're gonna talk to Catholics and tell them how good abortion is, let's pull up a saint and make something up, and you find some documentation. Boy, what's going to happen when AI takes hold of everything? Wow, it's going to get even worse.
Right. It is. But that is how. But isn't that how it's always been, though? That you get attacked where you don't see it coming, and and they go for the young on purpose, because they'll fester, and I don't mean it as a brag, because one thing about having 5 kids is it makes you completely unable to say I'm a good parent anymore. Too many things happen for me to be proud of my parenting. That I have been humbled by parenting.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But it's amazing, even if these young people are well versed on saints and have read up on the saints and know, like, St. Bridget's story, for example, and then somebody throws something like this out there, and here's the documentation for it. It's like, I'd never read that about. I can't really say. I have to research that more. That really, a lot of people aren't going to do the research. They're just going to take it at face value.
Right. How many kids aren't going to do the research, or they're not going to call, their stupid dad who's sitting by the phone, and then other, or if they do even call the dad, it could be a busy day, and he just lets it go, and then all of a sudden, just years later, there's this thought, that, oh yeah, I do remember something about this, and that's how they get in. They go for people who are younger and don't necessarily have the knowledge base, and that was one thing. The second I heard it, I know it's bunk. You know what I mean? Because I've done enough research and I've done enough living to at this point, I know what the Catholic Church is. Mm-hmm. I know the Catholic Church was founded by Christ. You know what I mean? I don't have to, every discovery by some archaeologist of saying, hey, I found Jesus' brothers and sisters in a tomb. I don't have to go, oh no. Mm-hmm. Like, I can raise my eyebrow and say, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's another. This is a head scratcher for me, and it because I'm puzzled, and maybe it just sheds light on some darker reality that we're dealing with right now. You've mentioned we're dealing with we got an organization that's trying to steer Catholics away from the church. You're at a college; it's a place of higher learning. And I mean, I know that there's poor catechesis out there, but when you put the two words together of the miracle of an abortion, you don't have kids to go back and you say, how can that be possible? Because a miracle is a miracle. A miracle is of God. And it's, when you put those two things together, it doesn't make sense. Like you said, it screams like it's bunk, but you've got kids out there that don't know any better. I mean, you should look at this. You should have a kid that's been catechized enough to know that those two things can't be associated with one another, and yet they're propagating this apparently successfully.
Look, if it wasn't working, they wouldn't be printing these cards out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the scary thing, and the fact that there is, like when I see the term Catholics for Choice. I mean, I raised my eyebrow at that. I was like, exactly how is that? Since we're based, on the fact that Mary said yes to life, that John the Baptist leapt in the womb. All these things tell us exactly where God stands on it. Never mind the thou shalt not kill thing, which seems it should carry some weight. But these are the times we're up against. And one of the things that we are up against is the fact that for all these young people's lives, and, we know this, and it's a sad truth, that for many of these people, every mention of the church has been a punchline or just a throwaway of obviously something bad. If you're watching a show nowadays and, someone committed the murder or someone did something terrible, and the next person that comes on, into the show is a Bible-believing Christian or someone who's wearing a cross prominently, right away you're like, oh, yeah, I got the bad guy. Yep, he's right here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And these kids have lived their whole life like that.
Yeah.
Where the church is just seen as something patriarchal, something hateful, something, anti-woman. It's just, this is what they've grown up in. And the fact that so many are pushing through that and finding truth and coming home to the church is really a testament to the Holy Spirit being very hard at work on people's hearts and souls, because young people are starting to. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they've overplayed their hand. There was only so long they could push this materialistic, naturalistic, secular life, or we're just nothing matters. Everything is just random chance, and you're just you're an insignificant being on a rock hurtling through nothingness. And people know that there's more to the world than that. They know there's more to life. When they feel love, they know that's not just some evolutionary instinct. So to keep the species alive, we know that there's something else going on here. Something is connecting us to one another and to a higher being, and we've always known that. And I feel like in a strong way, these people have overplayed their hands, and people are starting to question it, which is wonderful.
It absolutely is. Now, I have to ask about this because obviously you've got loads of humor on your website, and you have to explain this to the audience because of course we're pretty much dealing with a picture here. But the title of this post of yours, sometimes they do the heavy lifting for me, and it shows a picture. Maybe you could describe this to our audience.
I love this.
You just see it, and you're just like, oh my God, the joke is right there. You guys did it. You did I didn't even have to connect any dots. So you have these two very angry-looking young women. I mean, they are really angry-looking, staring straight into the camera, and each one of them are holding signs. The one woman holding a sign says, "All men are pigs," and then her friend standing right next to her holding her sign says, "Women are equal to men."
Obviously, two feminists that are trying to make a point. I mean, they've got very important things to say here, but they just happen to be standing next to each other for this picture.
I mean, if I were to try to do something AI to make that joke, I could not make it more perfectly than they did.
That's right. Yeah.
It's just it's so hilarious. All men are pigs. Women are equal to men.
And they're very serious. You can see it in their face. They're very serious. They mean what they want to say here. So this is why I like this, because we're gonna sit here and talk about some very dark things for the duration of the show, and we have to be able to have some opportunity to laugh here. And I think you do just such a great job with that. You sprinkle this throughout your posts, and you've done so for so long. And I just want to tell you, I enjoy that.
One of the things is, and it comes from sort of a terrible place in me. Because when I started it, actually my brother and I started it many years ago. He's gone on to do different things, but like ruining my IT. But we talked, and we were saying, we get jeered and mocked all the time, and when we used to really get into it and argue with people in the comm box. Atheists would constantly be coming online, and we'd be arguing constantly with them in the comm box. The one thing they couldn't stand is to be mocked and to be made fun of. And so that, as sad as it is to say that, that's how I really started having fun with it. And now, since then, it really has. It's morphed into me. I mean, maturing a little bit, and I just kind of see everything that way now. Angels, as Chesterton said, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly.
Yes.
I've learned to take myself a little more lightly as I've grown heavier somehow, but I take myself more lightly. But that is one thing. A lot of these folks, they have never. One of the reasons they look down on us is because, in every interaction online, the guy with the Bible tends to get mocked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think once you turn that around and point a little and laugh, it really does make them bananas. And hopefully making them a little bananas does make them a little less comfortable in their own skin, and maybe make them question everything that they've been taught, and everything they believe without any evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, because all that comes from an angry, humorless person who's so consumed with their own viewpoint and fortified almost, and there's not an ounce of humor in them or a smile. It's the joy that people find in Catholics that draws people to the Catholic Church, and the anger and the vitriol that comes from those types of people really turns people off. So I think you turn that on its head, and you really take a story that exposes, I'll put it bluntly, some of these lunkheads, and then you add a little humor, and maybe you're poking and twisting a little bit, maybe making fun of them just a little bit. You're making a little bit light of a really heavy topic, which is really how Catholics should approach things. We don't need to be pounding our fist down and defiantly arguing with someone who's not going to be argued with.
You look, Ron, you'll remember this. Back in the 80s, when the moral majority was out there and Jerry Falwell was out there, anytime you saw Christians talking, they were slamming tables. They were upset. They were protesting this show. They were protesting that show. This shouldn't be on the air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every time you saw a Christian, they were dour-faced and they were angry and they were upset about something, right?
Yep.
And since then, the last 40 years, that caricature has completely turned around. So when young people look, they see how angry the secular progressives are and these materialists, and how angry they are where there's no truth in their world, And then you look at something like you look at the March for Life over any Antifa protest.
Mm-hmm.
You see these everyone's smiling, everyone's singing, everyone's having a great time.
Night and day difference.
At the March for Life.
And they're carrying signs that make sense.
Right, exactly. Right. We're a little more consistent, but isn't that the great part about the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is consistent because you don't have to, keep making up lies. Well, once you base one thing on a lie, the rest of it has to be lies to make up for that lie.
Yeah.
And then, women are equal to men. You could even go one further and say, wait, what is a woman?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Can't be defined anymore. Nobody can define it. And how strange is
right.
that?
It's a whole lived system without any foundation. I think the Bible has something to say about that they will not stand because they can't stand. And I think that's, with all the shifting sands under young people's feet, I think they are looking for something steady, and they are finding it especially in the Catholic Church. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very, very obvious. And, depending on what day it is, these issues seem to change. I mean, we obviously have our ongoing drum beats, but if you take a step back, it may last a week, may last a couple of months, and all of a sudden these things kind of go away. And I think that is troublesome for a lot of people, because if you're looking for truth and suddenly, I mean, you look at the push. A lot of these kids were brought up and taught, even sadly enough, in these public schools, that this issue about transgenderism and things like that. There was a big push for that not so long ago, and it's almost quiet now. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying there's bad elements that that don't remain out there, but it seems to fizzle. And if somebody is really looking for truth and they're saying, okay, well, now you're backing off on this issue, then that really can't be true. So what is true? And maybe that's why we have such an influx of younger folks and coming to the church, and praise God for that.
Right. You can't say that we haven't been consistent. My goodness, we are the most consistent because, we've been marching. We were marching for the same thing for 50 years every year and being ignored every single time.
Yeah.
So, and, we've been saying the same thing for 2,000 years, so there's no shifting sand under our feet. And, and that is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And we don't depend on media coverage. We got tens of thousands of people marching Washington. If you had 200 protesting ICE, they'd get the headlines.
Yeah.
But tens of thousands of those that are supporting life, not really any, not much, if any, mainstream media coverage on the March for Life. And, a lot of folks figured it would go away because, the Dobbs decision, but it hasn't.
One year, this is honest to goodness true. There I was, me and my 5 kids. We marched in the March for Life, and we actually saw these. I'm not kidding you. There were 8 or 9. I think 7 of them were old ladies, and 1 of them was an old dude. And they were standing on the steps, holding up pro-choice signs. Right, and they look like God's waiting room. There wasn't an octogenarian would have been young among these people. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there they are standing there, and I made a joke to my kids. Oh, they're going to get more coverage than we are, and they're like, ha ha ha, that's so funny. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, when the Washington Post, I think it was the Washington Post, came out, they said. Dueling protests take over DC.
Wow.
And of course, if there's any photography if there's any photography there.
The picture they showed
yes.
was of the 8 or 9 pro-abortion protesters. That's the picture.
Yes, yeah. And it's taken in such a way, you're led to believe that there's even more to the side, but, it's done in such an angle that, you just don't know. It's just...
Yeah, you go looking for something that's, okay, look, one person standing in the doorway, let's get him.
Yeah.
Remember that Indian that was beating the drums? Yeah, we heard about that. Oh, man, that's why we need Creative Minority Report to kind of put these things out there and put them in their place, so to speak. Matt Archbold, our guest here on Faith with Reasons. It is time for a break already. This half hour has gone by really quickly. So I predict the second half hour will drag. No, it'll go fast too. We'll be right back.
Did you know that in the last 12 months, the Christ Child Society of Toledo supplied 2,200 new coats, along with hats and gloves, and over 4,000 books to children in our community? We also provide layouts and education to parents of newborns, tutor and operate school libraries, because nothing is ever too much to do for a child. Are you a woman interested in helping to challenge poverty one child at a time? Contact us through our website at ChristChildSocietyOfToledo.org.
This is Dale Alquist with a Chesterton Minute. Have you ever heard someone say, religion can never depend on minute disputes about doctrine? G.K. Chesterton says that's like saying that life can never depend on minute disputes about medicine. Will the man who says we don't want theologians splitting hairs also say we don't want surgeons splitting filaments more delicate than hairs? Many a man would be dead today if his doctors had not debated fine shades about doctoring. It's also a fact that Western civilization would be dead today if its doctors of divinity had not debated fine shades about doctrine. We depend on doctors of medicine. We can also depend on the doctors of the church. Want more than a minute? Visit our website, chesterton.org.
Shop with a purpose at your St. Vincent de Paul Toledo thrift store, now located in the Airport Square Shopping Center, right next to Pet Supplies Plus at Airport and Reynolds. Save big on a huge selection of quality, gently used clothing, housewares, and lots of unique finds. Every purchase helps us help our neighbors in need. The St. Vincent de Paul Toledo Thrift Store, Airport Highway at Reynolds. Open from 10 to 6 Monday through Friday, 10 to 5 Saturday.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shayne Stanfield with Ron Finn, and we are blessed to have with us Matthew Archbold, father of 5, author, speaker, and columnist for several prominent Catholic publications. He's written for Catholic Digest, National Catholic Register, and certainly you can find his work on his own website, creativeminorityReport.com. That's pretty much what we've been talking about today, and there's certainly plenty to talk about in the news. As far as an author is concerned, he's got a book, Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage and American Antigone. Matt is a regular guest here at Annunciation Radio Morning Offering Program, offering unique insights every Thursday morning. And, Matt, we've got a little less than a half hour, and I think we could probably spend a majority of this time just talking about all the craziness that we find going on in, of all places, Minnesota. And it's a head scratcher for me, but it seems to be like the focal point of a lot of stuff that's been going on in pockets around the country. But why there? I mean, that's something we can get into. But we've got I would say an ex-journalist, reporter Don Lemon leading a group of people into a church of all places during a service. Unfortunate killing of a woman, Renee Good, with an altercation through the ICE folks, and of course you've written about this. They're creating her into a martyr, and they say rest in power and not rest in peace. So that's a little odd. Obviously the world's a dangerous place for Christians, but you pointed out it's a confusing time for us. But you've got another great article here about the future church. I mean, what does that mean for us? The church used to be a sacred space, and now it's a place of protest. So I guess we'll just let you help us muddle through all of this, because there's a lot that you've said here, and I think it's very important that we discuss it.
Yeah, you look at what happened there in that church.
Yeah.
That they all of a sudden this group comes in with a formerly famous Don Lemon, and demanding answers from a pastor who looks like he doesn't know anything. He was just gobsmacked by the whole thing.
Yeah. And
can you even imagine going into a Sunday service to yell about politics? And it seems so insane to me, but it's where we are right now. Like, none of the rules apply anymore, and it's just, so that happened and everyone was outraged. But then that's immediately followed up by, people trying to ram ICE agents. Okay, it's like the rules don't apply anymore, and then you have that unfortunate nurse getting in the middle of ICE agents and someone else, and then that escalated. We're dealing with this is a tinderbox right now, when none of the rules seem to apply. And the rules are, if you want to make a change like that, you do it politically. You call your congressman and you say, hey, let's work on this. You do something like that, but just taking it to the streets in a physical way and just saying the rules don't apply. Well, the rules still do apply, because now we're escalating. And now I just had the Philadelphia district attorney essentially called ICE Nazis.
Yeah.
Can you even imagine that? Call them Nazis. You have people online wishing death, saying if you have a patient who is an ICE agent, do something terrible to them, or if you're a waiter, poison their food or something like that. And these people are saying these things online. And it's just like, guys, the rules still apply. We're still supposed to be loving to one another. We are one another's neighbors. And then now someone, I don't know what happened there, but Ilhan Omar gets into a world of trouble with funds, and now someone's squirting her with some mystery fluid. And, this is all happening so quickly that I don't know how we're supposed to stop it, and I don't know how we're going to be able to pick up when this crazy game is done, other than praying, because I don't think anyone has control of this thing anymore.
No,
I think it has spilled out, and what was once probably paid protests is now actually gaining momentum, and now people are outraged, and more people are outraged, and now none of the rules seem to apply. I don't know where this is going, because the thing is, it's like a dam. The water just keeps rising. At some point, it starts spilling over, and there's no way to put it back.
Yeah,
there's no
absolutely.
way to stop it. So we really should all be praying right now that, and not just for one side. Pray that we all remember that everyone you see is a miracle. Every single person you see, and it might be covered up. It might be all shielded by the walls they're putting up, by the anger they're exuding, by the narcissism or even the stupidity that they're screaming at you.
Mm-hmm.
Please try to remember that every single person you meet is an immortal being, and they were created by God as an act of love, and there's a chance for you to show that love to them as well. And we have to remember that, because we have to be other.
Yeah.
We have to be the other, or else what are we doing here?
Yeah,
We have to rise above all this anger, all this hate, all this violence, and this is how we show the world what Christ gave to us. Because let's remember, this is the good news. This is the greatest news that's ever been promulgated throughout the world, and we have it. We know the great news. Let's continue to share it. Let's continue praying, and hope that somehow the Holy Spirit will be at work in many people's hearts, and they'll be open to that grace, and we can avoid a very, very, very dark day in this country.
Yeah, it's escalated so much into a tinderbox, partly aided and abetted by politicians who are really kind of firing these and encouraging lawlessness and disobeying the law. And that's you scratch your head and go, hey, we know where this is going to end up. Why would they do that? But to your point, I think it's great that Archbishop Paul Coakley, president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, urging his fellow bishops now and priests in the U.S. to offer a holy hour for peace, and really just to, as you say, get on your knees and pray about this ongoing unrest and violence across the country.
Well, I didn't know about that. That's great news. That really is.
Just came out today, yeah. So.
Well, let me get your take on this, Matt. You're an experienced journalist. I'm assuming that you've seen some posts here. There's also an independent journalist, Cam Higbee. I don't know if that's his real name or how he posts. If he has to be anonymous, I can totally understand why. But it seems like he busted the lid open on this Signalgate thing, and it's surprising. I shouldn't say it's surprising, but I don't know how else to act here, that you've got politicians that are involved in a highly organized communications network. That you've got. I just read that James O'Keefe went in and literally he described within minutes they were able to stop him in I think, presuming he was downtown, because they've got somebody that reads license plates. And he was in a rental car.
Wow.
And they knew it was him.
Wow. I did see that. Now, that is the thing. I remember we were all told to stay inside for COVID, and then all of a sudden you were totally allowed to go out into the city and burn it down. Remember that happened?
Yeah.
Without masks.
Yeah.
It was okay without
restrictions. These exceptions can.
Yeah. It turns out if you're screaming in the face of police officers, COVID can't be passed, but it's only for screaming.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember at the time, there were reports of this, and it never really it never bubbled up to the real news, but it was out there, that there were literally pallets of signs and pallets of bricks
Yes.
being dropped on corners.
Yes.
Wow.
And that is truth. I saw pictures
Yeah.
of it, as much as you can believe any pictures nowadays, but I saw it from enough different sources and enough different that I did come to believe it was real. So all of this is extremely well-funded, well thought out, and well planned. But the plan, the thing is, these things do, you start a ball rolling down a hill,
Mm-hmm.
and at some point when it tips, when that moment comes, when it tips, that takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening now. We can say, oh, no, this was all planned. This is all, constructed. These are bought and paid for protesters. I remember years ago when I was working, I was still a reporter, and this one guy comes out. I'm covering a protest, right? And he was not a believer in the protest. I guess he was on the other side. And he said, "Hey, Matt, hang out just 15 extra minutes with me." I was like, "I really got to get back to the paper. I got to write this protest up." He's like, "Just do me a favor. Just hang out with me for 15 minutes." As soon as all the trucks left, at 4:59, every single one of those protesters got into cars and left for the day.
Yeah.
Because they were being paid.
They were off the
by
clock.
the hour.
They're off the clock.
Yep, they were off the clock. Actually, it was 4:45. I remember that now. It was 4:45, and they all just they literally checked their watch. They were like, "Okay, let's go."
Wow.
And I tried to get that into my story, but my editors wouldn't let me put that in.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Just cover it straight." And I was like, "But that's information that I have."
That's news.
You know
That's
what I
the real news.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. but they said that wasn't part of the story.
So
But these things do take on, and that's what they're intended to do.
yeah.
To take on their own weight, and then they start rolling down the hill, and there's nothing to do, and then normal people get caught up in it, and that's really when you got a problem.
Well, and it's the normal people that are getting used. You're playing on people's emotions and whatnot. And the term that I've been hearing quite a bit recently, and I get your take on it, is that this is being referred more and more as a color revolution. Now, I know that our government's been responsible for doing this in other countries, but a lot of people are saying that's exactly what this is, particularly with the funding. How this is structured and this is being coordinated, and that you have people within the government that are actually aiding and abetting in this. And I don't know. I mean, but what you're saying is correct. I mean, at some point it's going to take on a life of its own, and it seems to me that it's very purposeful with that.
I mean, with these color revolutions, if that is true, if the sources, that in the government that have put on these color revolutions all across the globe, if they are putting that on here, that's even more worrisome, because we know one thing about them: they're really, really good at their job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
practice.
Right, they've had the whole world to practice on.
Yeah.
So, in a place like this, where we don't have all the limitations on communication that other countries might have, you could see where it would be the easiest thing in the world to start it here, right?
But, yeah.
Because,
and I think it's
a couple of news sources.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a couple of news sources, you got it.
Well, that's where I was going with the signal chat thing, and I think that's where this ties in. You've got a social platform, and I don't understand it, but they're able to communicate real time with one another. And it was this Cam Higbee person that infiltrated this, and he was playing recordings that he had, and it was real time about finding these agents at a particular street corner, and they have people, they're foot soldiers. They go out and they do their business, and they move on into another scene. And to find out that this was very much playing out with this nurse that unfortunately was killed recently over this past weekend, that's exactly what was happening. That was a coordinated event through this signal chat thing, and that's a very scary thing. And I just want to go back to what you said previously. This is where it comes down to, we have to be the different people. We have to be the people that pray, because these people obviously are lacking in their spiritual lives, and particularly through the tactics and things that they're doing, and we have to be everything but that.
I was just reminded that, and just to show how bad I am at selling my books, that in American Antigone,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole chapter on that, and that one of the characters is essentially being told what to do online, and he's saying, can you be in this city at this particular time and go there to protest this thing? And that's how it happens.
Wow.
These things are not organic at all. They haven't been this whole time. They haven't been organic. But
yeah, it's like they reach, like in the case of in the book that you portrayed, that novel. It's his job. He's got to go out and recruit other people and tell his friends, spread the word. Kind of like they drop it to the captains, and the captains spread out and mobilize other people as well.
It's exactly how it does work. But the fact is, and that's why you have someone. And look, I don't know the particulars of Renee Good or Alex Preddy. I know what everyone else knows, but they felt backed up. They felt like they were part of something. But the fact is then it's just you. It's just you out there, and all of a sudden you're wrestling with two ICE agents. That's a recipe for things going very badly very quickly, or that Renee Good's friend yelling her, drive away.
Yeah.
That was very, very, very bad advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these people, they think they're being backed up, by this whole movement, and they're part of something, but so many of them are just being used.
Yeah, they're being egged
in order,
on. That's it.
And it's all because we have elections coming up. We have midterms. That's why this is happening. You can track these protests to when they happen as to when the next election's coming.
Yeah.
None of these were happening under Biden or Obama. They happen when the other side is not in.
Good point.
And I mean, it just doesn't happen. It's the midterms, and it's a very sad thing to say, but still, once again, to bring it back, it doesn't even matter, because that rock has tipped over and it's now rolling down at us, and we all have to pray and do everything we can to make sure that we avoid this thing devolving into anarchy, because anarchy is not good for anybody.
Yeah, and it's getting very close. Matt Archbold, the familiar voice that you're hearing here on Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, and you can check out his articles, his blogs, at creativeminorityReport.com and read his articles in many publications. I know this really kind of touches on the Lions Come, which it was a wonderful article that you wrote, really about how, we can kind of see over time, over centuries even, what happens. We're attacked, we're cornered, the lions come for us, plain and simple. This is an article that is still currently in nationalcatholicregister.com. And I think you encapsulate the whole situation quite nicely in that. I encourage people to read that. So tell us a little bit more about how you got to write that, and was this something that you woke up and you just had comes out fast, just flows out of you?
It's funny because I end up thinking a lot about this stuff, and and I'm trying to think, and my kids, we talk about it quite a bit, and what is it we're supposed to do in this moment? And it's just, and really the best thing I can say is do what you've been doing. Just let's do it better. Because Jesus said, the world hated me first, and the world is going to unleash everything it can on you. It's guaranteed. It's fury, it's hatred, it's hunger to tear you apart. Look what it did to Christ, who was completely blameless. It pierced by nails, crowned with thorns, abandoned, mocked, left to bleed in the dust. Everything the world could bring onto Christ, it did. And it gets to the point where if you're left alone by the world, you're probably doing something wrong.
Very good point. Yes. Yeah, very, very good point. And wouldn't you say that, they could easily, because, we've been talking about the stuff that's going on in Minnesota. They don't need to do this all over the country. They can come after us by destroying the country, doing their best to destroy the country. And that's actually coming after us. And at some point, if things get destabilized enough, we could easily be in that position ourselves. And again, we need to be taking the stand and using our faith to do so.
Well, that's what is the thing. Once you get to that anarchic setting, once everything becomes chaos, the instinct for everyone is, I have to control what's mine.
Yep.
I have to get mine. I have to get what I can for me and mine, and that's when things, once chaos sets in, human nature will do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Because then it's just, I have to feed my kids. I have to get medicine for my kid who has asthma. I don't care about your kid who has asthma. That I got to do what I have to do. And once we lose the bonds that we've agreed to out, to make a society, once that goes, once we no longer trust one another, not to hoard everything, once things become short, I can only get so many of these, that's when the real ugliness starts. So all you need is a little chaos and anarchy, and the dark side of human nature will come out. And that's when things get really, really bad. And, and who's going to be persecuted? Look, when you look at the faces of that woman who was talking about ICE agents, right? And saying, you got to poison them, you got to do this to them, you got to do that. And when I look at the faces of those people who were in the church, yelling at the pastor, they were yelling at little kids, saying, "Oh, your daddy's a terrible Christian because he doesn't care." And you look at the way their faces contort, the way they twist, and I just wonder to myself, how would me and my kids do in a world where that person had power over us?
Yeah.
And I was asked to explain exactly what I believed. How would we fare in that world? And the truth is not well.
Yeah.
I would not be long for that world.
Right.
But that is what we have to be prepared to do. That's what we have to be prepared to be. And I'm not, look, the good news is I have messed up so much in my life. The fact that I still have a shot at becoming a saint through some, standing up for my faith at the end, it would be kind of the most awesome thing ever if I became a saint that way.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
I mean, this is one of the most mediocre lives you could ever talk about. And then all of a sudden, right at the end, I pull through and I become a saint. Dude, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why, some of these saints, and they're living saints in some cases when you see, especially young people, really saying, I've had enough of this nastiness and this ugliness, and they're finding God in their churches, in their Catholic churches, and we're seeing, some wonderful examples of, millennials that are not only leading the way for us, but are on the road to sainthood even in their youth. The newest one, is this Joe Wilson, who's 17. He died at 17 and has really inspired a whole generation. In fact, his high school, Catholic school teacher giving the religion class about saints and asked the students, who do you think a saint would be like today? And they answered, the whole class pointed to Joe and said, there he is. Oh. What a great inspiration for us. And, of course, Carlo Acutis. So many people are aware of him and just how much influence he's had. We're going to have a relic of him in our Holy Rosalie Cathedral coming up very soon here as well on February 7th. And we just see a lot of great millennials that are really leading us. And it makes me two things. It inspires me, but it also makes me think, why couldn't I have been like them at that age? I was an idiot, and I'm still an idiot, but it took me a long time to get half where that person is at the age of 16, 17.
I know, it is amazing. There was a young girl I coached in basketball, and she was a very sweet kid. Her parents didn't really come in a lot or to the games, but she was a really good kid. And like 2 years ago, all of a sudden she started coming, or it's like a year and a half, she started coming to our church. And she was always alone. And, I went up to her and I was like, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a few years. And she said, and it blew me away. She said, well, my parents don't really like church and all that stuff, but I've been waiting to get my license so I could start going on my own.
Wow.
And she got her license as quickly as she could so she could start going to church. And I was blown away.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
See, just when you get knocked down by the world and how disgusted you are by everything around you, then somebody like that comes along and gives you new hope. I love it.
Right.
Matthew Archbold, always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk with you tomorrow. We find out what's on your mind in the morning show tomorrow. In the meantime, everybody needs to go to creativeminority report.com and check out Matthew's books as well. Matt, thanks again for joining us. I love it when you're on, and you always have some terrific insights for us.
God bless, guys.
Thanks, Matt. God bless.
Bye.
Next week, we're going to be talking about a book, How to Be His, by Father Jesse Mango at Faith with Reasons.